Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome Byron Jordan of Jordan Services today. He started his success 24 years ago. With the help of his son Devontae, they have over 50 year-round clients. Today, Byron's going to be discussing some small problems, or some common problems with lawns and some organic solutions. So, introduce Byron Jordan.
Thank you, man. There you go. Good afternoon, everybody. What I talked about last time, it was about 4 months ago, was about solutions for lawns, and it was predominantly, no, it was 100% just using synthetic fertilizers. Because most of my customers, in my business, you give them what they want. And people want things to green up now. They, they want, it's like the American dream. They want things now. And so I give them what they want. Well, last several years, newer customers, I get like maybe out of 20 customers, potential customers, I get one that wants synthetic. They don't want synthetic, they want organic. And I didn't really know a lot about organic fertilizer. What I did know is every time that I used it in the past, there was no result. It didn't green up. Weeds were still there. But then educating myself on it, it takes a while to get that organic fertilizer to kick in. And once it kicks in, the good thing about it is it does it naturally. You don't have to really do anything. All you have to basically do is that if we have a drought, add a little more water. Once or twice a year, add some organic compost. And it breaks down in the soil. And the major thing about synthetic fertilizer and organic, or doing it organically, is that when you use the synthetic, you feed the grass. When you do it organically, you feed the soil. And that is, I know, it's pretty deep. And that's that's was pretty incredible to me because, I always fed the grass to green it up. Another major difference between synthetic and organic is when you're feeding the soil, you're making it possible for those roots, believe it or not, grass roots can go all the way to 4.5 feet long, which is incredible. Okay, I've never seen it personally, but incredible. Synthetically, usually you get about 2 to 3 inches, and that's it. And part of the reason is the soil is not in great condition for that to happen. And what I mean by that is soil is usually made up of clay, sand, organic material. And if you don't have enough of each one of those, then let's say you have too much clay. It doesn't drain properly. And if it doesn't drain properly, the roots don't get to grow and don't get to reach down to that 4.5 feet. And you have a poor result. You have a brown looking yard. It doesn't green up. And when it does green up, if you're doing it synthetically, it's just greening up for like the 2 inches below the soil. That's all you get. And in this business, your grass or any plants is only good as your soil. So poor soil, poor result. And so, I'm gonna pass, I'll let you guys pass these down. It'll tell you some of the topics that I'm going to talk about. And what I'm gonna try to do, and if you guys have a question, let me know. I'm gonna try to tell you the big difference between organic and synthetic. Organic's got a lot of pros. Synthetic, a lot of cons. But if you don't care, like I got 3 types of customers, and that'll explain about the don't caring part. Okay, the first customer, the first type of customer that I have, they want me to look at the yard, just cut it. No fertilizer, don't edge it, don't blow it, don't use the weed eater, just cut it. Okay, no problem with that. The second customer is what I have the most of. And what they want you to do, they want you to put some fertilizer on it, not organic fertilizer, but just fertilizer on it. And they want it green, and they want you to edge it and blow it, trim it. Done deal. The third customer which I only have about 5 of them, and I probably have to really think hard about what 5 people I have doing it naturally. They feed the soil. And once you start these things, you feed it. Some of the ways of feeding the soil is add organic material all over your yard, about a 1/2 inch thick. It breaks down, breaks through the grass, gets down to the soil, and then there's microorganisms and there's earthworms, and what it does is it breaks down that the organic material, and it makes the soil so that it feeds itself over and over again, kind of like recycling. It does it over and over again. And over time, like when you first start this, over time it takes probably about 2 years to get it to where you want it. Unless you take the shortcut, which is very expensive, and most people don't want to do it. You rip the yard out and you put 12 to 24 inches of topsoil down and mix it with some organic material, and that gets spendy really quick. Just to give you an example, 1,000 foot yard, let's say area of grass, if you tore that out and you put 6 inches to 12 inches of soil, you're looking at about $1,000 for the soil and the organic material, just alone, not even talking labor, okay? And the reason why you would want to do that if money was no problem is you start feeding the soil right away. Now, jumping back, if you don't do that process and you do it, let's say you take an existing lawn that's never been done organically, synthetic fertilizer, and you've done it, you would have to feed it organic material and what they call, you guys might have heard of this, a tea compost. It's a natural way of feeding the soil and increasing the earthworms and the microorganisms. And what that does is it creates nitrogen. And nitrogen is what greens your grass. Okay, but it's a natural nitrogen. Okay, not synthetic. And so you do this over and over again. Like I said, it takes about 2 years to do this process over and over again. You'll achieve that soil and where you want it. And
with that soil, does that mean it's going to be kind of green nonstop, or?
Yeah, it's going to be green nonstop. What you do with the synthetic fertilizer, you're doing it naturally, and it does it naturally, and it'll improve the structure of the roots. See, another thing about the roots, what you do is a lot of people think that you should water same time every other day, or no. The basic lawn, healthy natural lawn, what you do is you water maybe once or twice a week, and you do a deep watering. Instead of watering for 10 minutes, like I used to tell all my customers to do, you water for about 30 minutes, 2 times a week. And what that does is that promotes the roots to look for water and go down to that 4.5 feet. But if you water it every other day or every day, like I used to tell people, for 10 minutes, the roots stay shallow and they don't reach down 4.5 feet. And that's what you want. That's what makes a healthy lawn. And part of that too is drainage. Like I was telling you about the components of soil with the sand, the silt, organic matter. The thing about that is if it drains too much, then that's not good for the roots, so it's really got to be a perfect balance. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about. The second thing I'm going to talk to you about is testing the soil. This is really great for landscapers because it took all the guesswork out. Years, the 24 years I've been doing this, I've been guessing what that yard needs. I'd walk and look like the professional, and I'd look around and I'd take some soil samples and take a look at it and squeeze the dirt and see if it clumped or if it was, if it wouldn't ball up, and I'd just take a look at it and then I'd just guess what it needed. It needs more nitrogen, it needs more organic matter, it needs this. And it's like shooting in the dark. I mean, you get lucky sometimes, and the success rate was probably about 50% doing it that way. But doing with the testing, it's beautiful. The thing about the testing, you have to go down at least 4 inches deep. And get that soil and you test it. It takes about 2 weeks, and it's about $150 to do it. A lot of people think it's spendy, but it's what's your yard worth? I mean, a lot of people put a lot of money into their yard. Some people just want you to mow it. Those people are not going to have you test the soil. It's not going to happen. I mean, $150 just to find out what Byron says it needs and to improve it. And if it's already green, of course, people say, hey, Byron, you're doing what we pay you to do. It's green. And, not to talk about the environment, synthetic fertilizers is not good for the environment, the water table, the pets, your kids or grandkids that you might have playing on the grass. And so, so that's the thing about the testing. And like I said, it takes about 2 weeks for it to come back. Number 2, and it's on your list there too, is thatching. Thatching is really important. When I get a new customer and they have a lot of thatch, that means that their yard is not breathing. And what I mean by that, there's some green spots. That's the tough grass that is hanging in there. And that fertilizer, that synthetic fertilizer is making it green, But once you thatch it and you get and what thatch basically is, you guys, is dead grass. It's dead grass that it's like a carpet. It smothers everything. Water can't get down to the roots. So you thatch it. And usually a lot of people don't have a thatcher. As a matter of fact, I don't own one. They're about $2,500 for a commercial thatcher. And for what I need it for, I only use that particular machine once a year on someone's yard. But now that I educated myself about doing it naturally, you don't want to thatch every year like I used to do. I used to thatch every year. And the reason why you don't want to thatch every year is that soil that we're feeding, the microorganisms and the worms, earthworms, and all the organisms down there, when you thatch it, it disturbs it. And you're basically killing what you're trying to feed. And so then you got to do it all over again. And so you only thatch when you really have to. And so and then the good thing about doing it naturally, guys, is that once you do it, you thatch that one time, you put the organic matter down, you use the tea compost, another way thank you, for feeding the organisms and the worms and the stuff that's in the soil. Once you do that, you won't have a thatch problem because that eats the thatch. The thatch goes down into the ground, it eats it, it recycles it, it makes natural nitrogen, greens the grass, makes it healthy, roots grow down nice and deep. It's a win-win situation once you get to that point. Yes?
So is it better then to aerate than thatch?
You know what? You should do both. The reason why you want to aerate, and look at, man, I was going to say that, talk about that next. The reason why you aerate is because you want the roots to be able to breathe, okay? And then also you want that water to get down to the roots. It's kind of a combination thing. And then you throw the sun into the mix, and then you get a nice green lawn. But then when you aerate, after you thatch and you aerate, it's going to look like a bomb blew up in your yard, especially if you have a lot of moss. And if you don't have a lot of moss, you don't want to do this process because you really don't want to disturb that soil underneath, okay? And a lot of people say, well, you don't thatch that deep, Byron. When you're thatching, and if you're going to get that moss out, you're going to see a little dirt as you do it. And so then after you aerate, that's a good time to bring the soil in, put it over the top. A good time to put the grass seed down, sow it in, rake it in, roll it, keep it moist. And people say, well, how long should you keep it moist? It usually takes about a month to 6 weeks for the grass to grow in. And then too, since we're going to do it naturally, that's a good time to also cover the grass seed because the birds like to eat the grass seed. That's a good time to put the organic matter over the top of it to hide the grass seed and also to feed the soil because it breaks down, goes into the soil, and then you have that recycling process over and over again. And that's what I really like about it is that You know, the fertilizer, you know, it's quick. You know, an average yard, I can put it on in 20 minutes. Done deal. But the good thing about doing it organically, it does it naturally. It's like if you go in the forest. Why are forests, most forests, a healthy forest, why is it so, you know, fertile and everything is growing? You don't see any weeds. Yeah, I don't see any dandelions when I'm, you know, walking down trails and that type of thing. You know, the reason why it's so fertile because it's recycling itself. It's creating its own nitrogen. The soil is excellent. You know, we haven't did anything synthetic to it, and so it's nice and healthy. That's how we want to do our yards, our lawns. I mean, in a perfect world, you know, you just basically feed it, you know, twice a year. With the tea compost, they like you to do it 3 times a year. Oh, 5 minutes left. Oh man, I better get going here. Okay, so the next thing is your pH. How much acid is in there in your soil. The good thing about it is you did the soil test. First thing we talked about, you did the soil test, it came back. It tells you exactly to the T what that needs for the soil to be healthy, completely healthy. Okay, and usually you want to get your pH balance up to anywhere between 5.8 to 6.5. It's almost unheard of to get it higher than 6.5, almost unheard of. So you don't try to, it's not a thing where you try to, well, more is better. No, you want to get it in between that window right there, and it's a perfect window. And the good thing is, like I said, when you get that test back, when you get the soil results back, it tells you if it needs more lime, if it needs more organic matter, whatever it might need. It tells you right there. You go ahead and you implement it, and you're going to want to do this for the next 3 years, just to make sure you got that pH balance where it's at. And once you've done it for 3 years, that's why a lot of people don't do this organically because it takes time. Once you do it for 3 years, it'll do it by itself. You won't even have to worry about it. As long as you do all these processes over and over again, you want to just repeat it. Okay, well, we kind of jumped over this already. It's overseeding. It's on your list. I'll make it real quick. It's like I said before, overseeding after you got your soil test back, after you aerated, after you thatched, after you laid the soil over and then you put the grass seed down, you sowed it in with a rake, you rode it with your roller, about a third full of water. You don't want to do a full roll because you don't want it too tight. Seeds won't be able to grow up, push through, okay? And you only want to roll it one time. Some people like to roll it one time this way and then to the opposite direction and then over again. Way too much. And so, yeah, so that takes care of that. Adding nutrients, we kind of talked about that already, but that is really a key feeding that soil. I can't say that enough. I knew the soil was the most important thing for these 24 years I've been doing it. I knew soil was the most important thing, but I didn't know what it took to keep that soil nice and healthy. I just thought you bring in good soil, put the grass seed down, you put the synthetic fertilizer down, and call it a day. And it works, but it's not really effective if you want that grass to be able to do it on its own. And I really think that's the key, especially in my business. If I could get most of my people or all my people to go that route, it'd be a lot easier at the end of the day. It costs a lot more at the beginning because, of course, a bag of fertilizer is $25. I mean, you know, and if I did that 3 times a year, that's only $75. What makes it more expensive for my customers if they did it organically is the application, the labor. It would definitely be more than that. It'd probably be closer to about $500 a year opposed to $75. Now, a lot of people, I know I'm short on time, a lot of people might say $75, but is that it, you know, for the fertilizer? All my customers, if they're an all year round customer, which all my customers are, unless person is just a one-time deal, I just charge them for the fertilizer. I don't charge them to put it on because it doesn't take long to put it on anyway. Top dressing, and this is after you did all these things. I kind of touched base on this top dressing. The top dressing is good to do 2 times, 3 times a year, doing it organically because that's what feeds the soil. the organic material that you put over the top, you don't put a lot over. You only do a 1/2 inch. So you see the grass, but you put a 1/2 inch on, and you don't cut the grass for about 3-4 weeks because you don't want to suck up all the organic matter that you put on the grass. Because remember, the key is feeding the soil, not feeding the grass. Let's see. Yeah, we talked about the tea compost. And then the last thing is you just want to repeat this process over and over again, except for the key, you don't want to thatch every year. Okay? So everything else that I explained to you, the aerating is good. The aerating is good to do once a year because when you aerate, if I didn't explain that to a T, is when you aerate, you're plugging the yard. So it's punching holes in the yard, and then once the plug comes out, I say it's about that long, it's round little cylinder, it's dirt. That's all over your yard. It looks like a disaster happened. You want to leave that because remember, a lot of that has those organic material in it. It breaks down and it fertilizes the grass all over again.
So don't rake that up.
So you don't want to rake it out. A lot of people do. Last question. Only one question. I'm out of time.
Have you seen the documentary Back to Eden?
No, I haven't.
It's a great documentary if you like about gardening, like you were saying.
Right.
Because basically the concept is the earth was made to be perfect. It sustains itself, like in the woods and stuff like that. And so
Right.
using like wood chips in your garden that break down and get evolved instead of fertilizers.
That's it.
And so it'd be a good one.
Yeah, I like to see that. Oh, definitely.
Back to Eden.
Back to Eden.
It's in swim.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. Because it came from California. It's like precious.
I got one last question. If
Yes.
somebody decides to go the organic route, and I know it takes time.
yes.
Are they then like, could they then use some synthetic in the meantime to
No.
help it be green, or is that going to be the purpose?
No. I mean, because, and I'll make this last point. One thing about synthetic, if you look at a natural yard and you look at a synthetic yard, there's a couple big differences. The synthetic yard, the roots only go down to about 2 to 4 inches. That's it. A natural lawn, it goes down 4.5 feet, or can to 4.5 feet. Because the key is the soil is healthy, it's got the microorganisms, and it's got the worms. It's making the soil better, it's recycling itself. And then also the synthetic kills those organisms. And so, yeah.
Sorry, how much is it to get your lawn tested? Is that something you can do?
It's $150, but there's the Washington State Extension. I think they do it for $50.
And you take.
And you take it to them, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do to bring it up. The Washington Extension program is it's in Puyallup. I don't have the address, but the handout that I sent you guys, there's a phone number on there. They do the testing for $150. And there should be a phone number. Oh, yeah, because you know what?
$50 number.
Okay, no, there you go. So I'll get that for you. I'll get that for you next week. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, Byron Jordan, Majority Services, thank you.